special report on Wednesday, January the 7th, 2026. FSPN, Frankie from Flatbush. We needed a special report because of the news of the day. News of the day that's relevant to the New York Jets, which is Tai Simpson has declared for the NFL draft. Now, if he actually follows through with it, there is a chance he could go back once you declare. There's certain timelines and deadlines, but he is saying for now anyway that he's going back. He's going into the draft, and it kind of makes sense. We'll get into his story, but the main thing with his development was he made a mistake last year. Should never ever have sat behind Jalen Milroe. Simply because, number one, he needed to play and get the games under his belt and get that experience. And number two, he would have had the year he had this year, which was sort of up and down, he probably would have had last year. And then this year, he would have been more consistent and a surefire first-round pick. But now there's all sorts of questions. All right. So who is this Tai Simpson fella? What does he have to do with the Jets? Well, number one, he has to do with the Jets because the more quarterbacks that are in the draft, the better for the Jets. High-profile ones, and he's, currently, by all reasonable estimations, he's, estimators, evaluators, including myself. He's number 3 on the list, but it's a big drop from the first two, which would be Mendoza and Moore, and we don't know if they're coming out yet. They play a game tomorrow. That'll be exciting to watch and grade, and then one of them will lose and hopefully tell us they're coming into the draft. And then when the other one loses in the championship game, hopefully that person tells us they're coming into the draft also. Because the more quarterbacks that are there, the less pressure there is to get one. Like if there were just one, like Mendoza, then the Raiders would be sitting pretty and they could either take him or they could ask for a king's ransom in a trade, knowing that the other teams who need a quarterback aren't going to get one that they like, so the price just goes up. So it's good that Simpson came in. I think Trinidad Chambliss, for example, I want him to go back to school. I think his case should be decided by the NCAA in his favor. He's putting in for a waiver for a redshirt medical, which by all indications seems to be an easy approved check. Yeah, good to go. But the NCAA is dragging their feet, has not ruled on it yet. If they deny him that extra year of eligibility, he'll come in too. He's in one of these guys who are in the Final Four now. So that would be good. There's another quarterback in there. Not quite sure if he's a first rounder, but still, it's kind of like a fallback option for teams. So this is in that category, Tai Simpson. Now, those are two totally different paths, totally different paths for those quarterbacks. I'm not saying they're the same that way. Why do I say that? Well, Tai Simpson was a 5-star recruit, just like Dante Moore. They're both 5 stars. So this was a guy who had a big future ahead of him, and then he sat behind Jalen Milroe. Bad choice, in my opinion. And then now only has 15 games started in his entire college career, and that's going to be a problem for people. Also going to be a problem his tape. But let's see. Now, Tai Simpson. Simpson is 6'2", 200 and where do they have this measure? 6'2", 210. So not the biggest guy in the world. And if he measures any less than 6'2", that's going to hurt him. So let's hope he measures in 6'2 plus. Then he's all right. 6'2 is kind of like the Mendoza line for height for quarterbacks. You could have shorter ones, but if they're shorter, then they probably need more athleticism than Tai Simpson has. Now, in his scouting report from Bleacher Report, it says he's emerged as a top quarterback. He continues to play beyond his limited experience. His poise, pocket navigation, and passing accuracy scream long-term NFL starter. That's right. Now, this was written in the beginning of the year when he was playing really well. It was a tale of two halves of a season for Simpson. And we'll get into that. But so he's 6'2", 210. He only has 15 games worth of starting experience. And so that's going to hurt him. His athleticism is fine. It's not exceptional or great. It's enough to get by. He's more athletic than you think when you first look at him, but it's not elite or anything like that. So that's who this kid is. Five-star recruit. Sat behind Milrow and waited. That was a mistake. And now he only has 15 games worth of experience. The problem with the 15 games started is there's very few, if any, quarterbacks coming out of college that have had that little experience and then succeeded. All the ones who've had that little experience, Mitchell Trubisky, Anthony Richardson, and Dwayne Haskins, all did not live up to their potential. So that is something to keep in mind because teams really want to have some kind of a narrative that they can fall back on. Like, don't worry, but this kid, he's got this, and this. I mean, there's just very little precedent. Now, the narrative you could sell yourself on, this kid is a son of a 20-year head coach at the college level. So his dad is a head coach at UT Monroe or something, some little tiny school, but still being the son of a head coach means he's basically been coached up his whole life, if you think about it, right? That was going to be the narrative if his play continued because his season was like this in the beginning where he was off like a skyrocket and it would look like Heisman time and all this. And then he fell down. And then in his last game he played, not his last game he got injured, but the game before that he played okay and they won. They came back and won, so he redeemed himself a little bit. But that's where we are with him. That 15 games is going to be a stumbling point for some teams, or a lot of teams probably. Now, I did scout him, so when I say scout, I mean I watch the games and I have a system for scouting quarterbacks where it winds up in a grading system. Now, my grading system, I'm not going to go into it here, but the members of this channel have access to all of the grades for all of the college quarterbacks that I graded this year in a scouting fashion. And they have access to how the grades work. But what you need to know, from my perspective, or for this video's perspective, is each level of the grades is a pretty big chunk. So it's like if you get a B plus and the next person gets a B, those are not really close in my system. It's like a full level down. So every system has its flaws. It may not be perfect, but just to give you an example, is when I started grading him out, his first game was against Vanderbilt, who was ranked 16th at the time, and he was getting good grades against highly ranked teams, which is why I was very excited about him. Started out against Vanderbilt, which was 16th at the time, SEC school, he got a B+. Then Missouri, the 14th ranked team at the time, on the road, SEC team, B-. Then he played Tennessee, the 11th ranked team at the time, at home, known as the Cigar Game. He got an A in that game, and I was thinking, wow, this kid's really something. Then he played South Carolina, another SEC team, not ranked. He played against Lenora Sellers there, B-, not great. Then he came back and played against LSU, which was not rated at that time, but that was right after they fired Brian Kelly, so they were all fired up to get rid of Smelly Kelly, and B+. But then, after that, he starts to go down. Oklahoma, 11th ranked at the time, C+. Auburn, not ranked, B-. Georgia, 4th ranked in the SEC championship, no bueno, C-. Then they make it into the playoff. There was all that discussion. Should they make it? What about this team? What about Notre Dame? But anyway, they get in there. Round 1 of the CFP, they beat Oklahoma, the 8th ranked team in the nation, and he got a B-. He had a decent game. And then they played Indiana, and Indiana is the 1st ranked team, the best team in the nation, pretty much, and did not have a good game, got a C, but had to come out of the game in the 3rd quarter due to injury. So the question for him is really going to be, what is this kid? It's going to be a tricky evaluation. All of that in my system averages out to a B-. A B-, if that's what you thought he was, and my system just grades, by the way, the throwing. I'm not grading the running and the this and that leadership and da-da-da. We just make notes about those things. They don't change on a game-to-game basis, so I don't grade them on a game-to-game basis. He's a good enough athlete. He can get by with his athleticism. He's going to win in the pocket if he's going to win. That's what he is. But the question is, what really is he? Is he a B minus? Because if he's a B minus, and that's what he is, and I'm not saying my grading scale tells you what he is, that's just what he graded out as. There's other things like injury that can come into play. But if he were a B minus, then he'd be like a fringe starter, a good high end backup. Should be in the league, but not expected to, elevate your team or anything. But the question for him. Now, it came out that he had a back injury. Okay, so if he was playing through a back injury, which would make sense if he kind of knew he wanted to declare, and he knew he doesn't have experience, and he's got this back injury, and it's not that bad, but maybe it's hindering his performance. Okay, that could explain the bad games toward the end of the year. So you'd really need to dig into his medicals. That's going to be a big part of the offseason for teams, because if teams are getting the first half of the year Tai Simpson, they'll feel a lot better about taking him in the first round than if they're getting some combination of the first half of the year and the second, or just the second. So that's really what he is, and I would encourage everyone to become a member by clicking the join button, and you'll get all these grades, and you get all explanations, and you can ask me questions in the member section. By the way, members, check out the posts on this channel in case you're a new member. That's where you can go and get all the resources and ask me questions and stuff like that. Hey, why do you do this? How does this work? But we're not going to get into that just in the regular old video. So that's what he really is. At least that's how he graded out as. Now, how does this really pertain to the draft? I mean, could you see the Jets taking him at 2? No. Nope. Not at all. We're not taking him at 2. No. He's not worth that pick. Only Mendoza and Moore are worth that pick. Could they take him at 16? That's our other first-round pick. I would say no. So let's say, for example, for some reason, we can't get Mendoza or Moore. Moore goes back to school. Mendoza, the Raiders are locked in on him. They're not making any trades. They're sticking and picking, and they're taking Mendoza, let's say. So we can't get him. We can't get Moore. All right, what now? Well, and let's say we get that inclination before free agency starts. That's the feeling we get after the combine, and, Mooj is making his calls around, and, he's getting a feel for it. Well, in that case, we're signing a free agent. There's no other choice. So we would probably go hard after somebody like Malik Willis would be number one on the list. We'd have to fight off a couple of teams for his services, probably, who basically come to the same conclusion. Could be Cleveland. Could be Miami, maybe. We don't know what the hell they're doing. Could be Indianapolis, although it seems like they just signed Danny Jones and do it over again. And just try not to get hurt this time, Danny. Minnesota, no. Carolina. So there'll be a Pittsburgh. Malik Willis could maybe a Pittsburgh situation. Depending what Aaron Rodgers decides to do, he might come back next year. We don't know. But there's a few teams that really could use a Malik Willis type, so might have to fight them off. But I think that Mooj, if we really want to sign him, I think we can make a really good case. And by the way, Cleveland, I don't think Cleveland Browns are a realistic landing spot for him, because his agent is David Mulugheta of Athletes First, who also represents Deshaun Watson. And I don't think David Mulugheta is going to put Malik Willis in a situation where he's blocking his other client, Deshaun Watson. He would rather both of those guys get a chance to start somewhere, Watson and Cleveland, obviously, so that they can establish their value and get really huge contracts. Watson, in his mind and the agent's mind, should think, hey, if I'm given a chance, I can go back to the way I was with the Texans. That's the way he should be thinking. I don't know if that's realistic, but from his point of view and the agent's point of view, that's the way it is. And so is he really going to put Malik Willis in there to block him? That doesn't seem right. But there could be maybe Miami, maybe, who knows? Maybe Indianapolis. You never know. So, but let's say we land Willis. But Malik Willis, okay, it's a dice roll. He's played well in a small sample size, and he had first-round grades and pedigree could have gone to first round, but just needed some seasoning, and development. So you don't know. So maybe we want to take Tai Simpson as a backup plan. All right, how would that work? Well, we also have the 33rd pick in the draft, so I would not take Simpson in the first round at all. What I would do is take Reuben Bain and then wide receiver, best wide receiver I can get at 16, whether that's lemon lime, very refreshing. Taters, delicious. Can you tell it's dinner time? uh, or whoever it might be, Denzel Boston. No food puns for that, I guess. But you know, so basically, you get the edge rusher Bain, who can also play inside. Basically, think JFM plus a better JFM, Reuben Bain. Then you get the wide receiver, and then we have the 33rd pick, and that's a very tradable pick. I would trade that pick back, get more ammunition. Maybe we trade it for a third round pick this year, and moving back to whoever wants to trade with us. And then in that second round, we take our we take our defensive tackle and Ty Simpson. So maybe you take him in the second round with it's like a Tyler Shuck situation. You take him there, and then now you've acquired a third round pick, and with that third round pick, we can get our safety or linebacker or what have you with that one, or maybe a backup guard if we sign AVT. Need a contingency plan for injury there, but that's a situation where that's pretty good, because now you got Malik Willis. You expect him to win the job, but you bring in some competition with Tai Simpson. Maybe he surprises you, maybe he doesn't. Probably need another veteran in there too. The Gardner Minshew level, not Gardner Minshew, but that level of player, just in case, just a veteran. In case Willis gets hurt for minor injury, you probably don't want to stick Ty Simpson in the game any time in the first half of the year for sure, unless he comes in and just blows the doors off. You never know with these kids, but he is an older prospect. He's already 23 years old, so there is that. He has some physical development is pretty much done for the most part. Just playing more games would help him, and being in practice, I think, helps him. Being on the scout team helps him. He needs all those reps. Preseason, all that. So that's what you could look at with the Ty Simpson there. Now, you say, well, what if he's not available in the second round? Well, so what? Then you take a flyer on somebody in the fifth round, a Cade Klubnik, or Drew Aller, some bum, and Carson Beck, one of them bums, and you roll with that way, because you're really putting your eggs in the basket of Malik Willis anyway, and Ty Simpson in that case would just be a backup plan. If that doesn't work out, all right, take Carson Beck in the fourth round, or Cade Klubnik, one of them bums, and ride with that. And if that all doesn't work out, well, then there's 2027 when we have 3 first-round picks. So, and in this scenario here, we're not trading any of our capital to move up. We're getting one of the best players in the draft on defense. We desperately need defense, obviously. We're also picking up a wide receiver. Now we have an excellent wide receiver room for Willis. In this scenario, it would be Malik Willis getting first crack. And we have an excellent wide receiver room. If we sign AVT, we have a great line. Well, we have a pretty good line. We got a decent tight end room. We probably draft another tight end in the 5th round for blocking purposes. We got Breece Hall. I'm convinced he's coming back. Breece, Braylon, and Isaiah in the backfield. Pretty good. So there's a pretty good surrounding cast for that. And then with the other second round pick, we're picking Amari Washington at defensive tackle, say, if he gets into the second round. Now you got Bain, Amari Washington, Jermaine Johnson, Harrison Phillips, Jawan Briggs, Will McDonald. Now you're starting to see a decent line. And I'm sure we should sign at least one defensive tackle and one edge player in free agency, like we should have last year. And when I say we signed 3 defensive tackles last year, but they were all bums, as I told you. Now you got something on defense. Plus, your offense is looking pretty good, and the offense will just really be all about, what is Malik Willis, and then you just hope and pray that he's developed enough under LaFleur over there in Green Bay, the quarterback factory, that that he's the guy. And then you're often, I mean, imagine if our defense can go from 30, whatever we wound up being, one of the worst, well, move up to 20, 18, God forbid 16. We're average. We have an average defense, and Malik Willis is good, and the offense is humming. And then we sign. So then, if that's the case, we sign Malik Willis to a long-term deal, and you've got Tai Simpson there in this scenario, where he was a second-round pick. If he sits on the bench the whole time, so what? If he needs to come in, okay, he has some development time, no pressure, and develop on your own time, Tai. And maybe you have a good backup. Who knows? But nonetheless, you signed Willis to a long-term deal. You got Simpson for a backup, and then 2027 comes, and we got 3 first-round picks. So I really think, looking at it, I mean, does Malik Willis want to go to Arizona Cardinals? That's another team that could use him maybe. There's going to be 3 or 4 teams that it really makes sense for Malik Willis. I don't think it's the Browns. Vegas, you could say maybe, but if Vegas signs him, they're not going to take Mendoza, so then Mendoza slips to us unless they trade that pick out to somebody else. But if they're going to trade that pick, why not trade it to us to move up 1 spot and only fall down 1 spot? Then you take Bain, Raiders. I mean, Bain and Mad Max on the same line is pretty good. Something like that, or Arvell Reese, or whoever you want to get. Then you're not chancing it. You're only slipping down 1 spot, and we're taking Mendoza if you trade to us. So either way, I don't know. I don't see Malik Willis really wanting to go to Arizona. They don't have what we have. I mean, we don't have a lot, but we have some decent stuff. I mean, they got Trey McBride, and they got the Maserati, and they got some other decent player, but they don't have a real good running game. They don't have, their offensive line isn't as good. They just fired their coach. They don't know what they're doing out there. They're like us. They're in the ghetto with us. But I think our situation's a little better right now. So we'll see. But that's how I could see Tai Simpson being a Jet. Not a first round pick. Something in the second round. I really want to trade back with that second round pick. And if he's not available at that time, so what? It's just a backup plan. Then you go get somebody else as a backup plan. Take a flyer on Carson Beck. Take a flyer on Cade Klubnik. Take a flyer on whoever you want. Garrett Nussmeier. Whatever. It doesn't matter. He's a backup. And then that person just, rides the bench and hopefully never comes into the game. And if that doesn't work out, well, then we move to 2027, which is probably, I mean, we're the Jets, let's be honest. All right. So we'll have to see how all this plays out. We also don't know who is going to be coaching in some of these places like Arizona and Las Vegas. Let's just check on FSPN for late breaking news. Nothing late breaking. Playoff games coming up. Tomorrow we got college football playoff. Friday, college football playoff. Saturday, NFL playoff. Sunday, NFL playoff. It's the best time of year. Does not seem like there's any breaking news. We should have some coaching news for the Jets. I would anticipate probably tomorrow or the next day about some of the minor coaches. Like, are we going to stick with Charles London? Are we going to, who are we sticking with? I mean, on defense, it depends who our DC is. We should start seeing some reports of who we're interviewing for DCs. We should start seeing that come out. So we'll see. That's your breakdown of Mr. Tai Simpson and what it means for the New York Jets. I'm Frankie from Flatbush. You should be subscribed to this channel. It does help keep it for free. But what's not for free is joining the inner circle. I mean, we got a $2 level. We got a $5 level. We got a $10 level. You could join any level that fits your budget. And then you get to check the posts. And you get some exclusive information from old Frankie. And let me tell you, it'll knock your socks off. Oh, yeah.